So last summer I spent a couple of days on Quinag. That was prompted by a day I spent with something called the Highland Raptor Study Group, which are an organisation which monitor birds of prey in Scotland. So I thought I'd go along to that and see what they're about, and they suggested that I maybe start recording merlin nesting sites in this area as a start. So I only actually got out for 2 days last summer, so it wasn't a huge start. But I got a little pointer from Andy about where I might start, up on Quinag. So they'd been seen, or a merlin had been seen mobbing, I think, a raven, and therefore that was a good sign that they are about and probably breeding. I think there are historical records in the Wailing Widow Falls, and obviously there's not much living there now because there's just too much disturbance in there. But they nest on little cliffs and crags in Assynt as opposed to in long heather where they nest in other parts of the country. The heather isn't really long enough up here, I don't think, for them, so crags is where they nest. So this is sort of environment they're in. So a few facts. It's the smallest bird of prey. It's only about the size of a missel thrush. It's red listed, so they're thought to be in trouble, although they haven't been surveyed for quite a long time, and they're a bit of a mysterious bird because they're really difficult to locate. The diet is mainly small birds, so up here it's mainly meadow pipits, because that's just about the only small bird in a lot of their territory. But that might include things like stone chats and wheatears and maybe young waders and stuff like that. But they also eat large insects such as the big day-flying moths you get on the uplands here, the northern eggers. And it's mainly hunting by chasing, low down. So it's another reason they're actually quite hard to spot, because they usually stay close to the ground and they are very fast, so not many people. Who's seen a merlin here? Right, okay. Probably not for more than a few seconds at a time. They just whiz through, and that's all you usually see them. So yeah, they breed in the uplands across the UK, right down southwest on Dartmoor. They breed as well, so it's a small population there, but generally it's the uplands in the north and Scotland. And then in the winter, they leave the uplands and go to lower areas and coastal marshes, things like that. And the males and females are different looking. So the male has got a slate blue grey back and a sort of chestnutty striped chest, and the female's browner. And the young also in the first or up to the second year, I think, look brown too, like a female. So they are challenging to find, which is part of the appeal for me, because it's I like a challenge, and to get out and to actually, you know, learn some skills and learn some new skills about finding things is always a good thing. And they've got this low dashing flight I mentioned. They don't call very often, so you're not going to easily pick them up by hearing them. And they are, even in their sort of best breeding areas, they're quite thinly distributed. So it's always going to be hard to find them. So when I set out on Quinag, the first thing I found was actually that I got pretty confused, because I heard a bird of prey, and I kind of sat for hours waiting to see it, because I heard it briefly. So a lot of this surveying for birds of prey like merlin is sitting down and waiting. So I waited at a sort of vantage point where I could see, and that bird that I'd heard turned out to be a kestrel, which I wasn't expecting up there, because it's kind of quite extreme habitat for a kestrel, which you know, where I've spent most of my life down in southern England, living on farmland and, you know, quite soft, easy life. But up here, this was like quite high up, you know, so I was quite surprised to find that. And this here is a kestrel's pellet, which I'd actually placed next to a merlin's pellet just for comparison. So that's another clue as to what you're looking for. So I don't know if you can see the difference there, but I've actually zoomed into it here. So that is the kestrel. So that's hair in that. So it's all rodent hair, or probably voles up on the Quinag. Whereas the merlin, I don't know if you can really see, that's not very good detail, but that's feathers. So both about the same size. So if you find a pellet, there you go. You know what it is, whether it's kestrel or merlin up there if it's that size. And then if I go back, so there's another thing in there, which are these, which are the plucked off wings of the moth, the northern egger. So they chase these things as well. So if you find these, that's a sign that we're merlin about, because there's nothing else does that. And that's the moth there, the northern egger. So yeah, while I was up there, there were quite a few of these flying about. So. So this shows a typical site where they pluck their prey, the merlin, and there's a moth, and then the rest of it is merlin feathers. Meadow pipit feathers probably. Quite a lot. So it's on a raised bit of ground, a hummock or a little rock, and that's where they pluck their prey. So that's one of the best ways of surveying for merlin, is identifying these raised bits of ground hummocks and spotting if there are pluckings and things on there. And if there are, then you know that there are merlin in that habitat breeding. Is that the same thing? Yeah. So this is just a quick view of the habitat. It was a bit windy that day. And the merlin are actually round the corner on this crag. That's where they are actually nesting. Okay. So quite high up really. That's just another view of some habitat there. Is that bog bean? Yeah. Yeah. So I left the sound recorder out for a couple of days, and that's just obviously a little sample of what a merlin sounds like. And they only really call near the nest or when they're mobbing something, I think. So you're unlikely to hear that call very often. And happens to be, I just found out the other day that the RSPB are doing a big merlin survey, which they haven't done since 2008. If anyone's interested in doing that, they can contact this guy, as he contacted me to see if I was interested. Quite big areas you're surveying, 10 kilometre squares, so it's not easy. But I think in Assynt it's probably, a lot of it isn't going to be suitable, so you'd be looking at areas with crags where they can nest on basically. But it's still a lot of difficult ground to cover, so you have to be quite fit to do that. I'm not sure if I'm up to doing 10k squares, to be honest, but yeah. And they do 3 visits between 1st and 1st of April and 31st of July. So yeah, that'll basically reveal, what's happened to them, because at the moment I think they're saying there's between 700 and 1,200 pairs in the UK, but they're not sure how many. So yeah. There's another little nice picture of what it's like up there. So, any questions?
Do both the males and females have those bright yellow legs?
I think they do, yeah.
So that's the way I usually think I've seen one, is that the legs are just like this luminous yellow colour.
Oh right, yeah. I haven't seen them close up enough myself.
Yeah.
I hardly saw any merlins in the day. I just, because I was quite a long way from the nest, obviously I didn't want to disturb them. It was a period when they'd have young, so it wasn't a high risk period, but still, you don't want to get too close. So I was probably about closest I got to the nest was probably about 300 or 400 meters. But that they weren't disturbed by that, so I sort of watched from there. But still, only every couple of hours did I see anything happening, because that's how often they're going to bring the food back to the nest.
It was actually in that area when I was out fishing with clients. I saw them. I've seen them a couple of times. They're actually sitting on rocks, so they're probably out hunting.
Yeah, well, I think if you're fishing, that's a great way to see them, because you're standing still and you're not disturbing them. You're there for a while. So yeah.
There's quite a lot of hummocks and stuff out there. How did you find the ones with the?
Yeah, good question. Look at all of them.
Shortcuts.
No, after a while you kind of get an eye into these things, so you get to know the hummocks they prefer, and they're generally the bigger ones, because I suppose they like to sit on a hummock and have a broad view around them, and obviously it has to be a bit bare on top so they can actually perch on it and pluck things rather than be tangled up in heather. So yeah, I quite quickly sort of narrowed down, and then I found that each of those hummocks that I thought might look good had something on it. Yeah, so that helped. So it's just a learning thing in the field craft, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Is there any sort of idea of what sort of size of range they would have? Are they very territorial? Or? Is that not known?
I tried to look this up actually, and I couldn't find any information on it. And I think most birds of prey have a sort of hunting range, but merlin don't seem to have a well-defined hunting range, really. So it's a bit unknown, I think.
Imagine it's such a small bird. You think it would be a bit localised.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But then I spent hours up there, and I hardly saw any hunting. So I'm thinking it's going quite a long way off, because I was watching, and I saw it kind of fly back in, but I didn't see where it had come from. So yeah, a bit difficult to know that. And also up here, I think it probably depends on the density of the prey. So there weren't loads of meadow pipits up there, so it's probably got to fly quite a long way to get enough chance of catching something. So yeah.
Just on the idea, how would it compare with the size of a male sparrowhawk? Because the male sparrowhawk's slate coloured back, isn't it?
It is.
Does that have a bit of orange on it as well?
Yeah, it's pretty close in size. It's smaller. It's got a shorter tail,
Right.
and it's got longer wings in proportion to its body. So typically when you see a sparrowhawk, it looks quite sort of short-winged and long-tailed.
Okay.
And also, you're not really going to get sparrowhawk in that sort of habitat in the breeding season, because they're going to typically be more near woodland. So it's a bit of a split between habitat. And the way they hunt, probably. I mean, sparrowhawks are, they're sort of more an ambush. They kind of often dive into cover and scatter birds and try and pick one up. Whereas the merlin are chasing an individual bird, sort of on open ground. And that's obviously quite subtle. You only see these things for seconds normally, don't you? So, yeah, it's quite a tough one unless you've got some experience of both, probably, and then you get to know the difference just by its what they call the jizz, just the sort of way it moves, the way it flies. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
Oh, thank you. All right, cheers.
We'll move on. So our next speaker is probably one of the youngest speakers we've ever had. So I was really delighted before he's going to come, and he's going to talk about something that I think is missed very much. A lot of people in Assynt think about wildlife, but do they think about all the wee fish that are in our rock pools and things like that? Corwin's the man, he knows all about it. So over to Corwin. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Corwin Yates. I'm 16 from Torbreck, and I want to showcase the really underappreciated, understudied world of small fish in the Highlands and in the UK overall, and just how there's sort of you'll hear when I'm speaking a lot of words are it's thought, or there's so little concrete about what these fish do, and there's some of course more so than others, but especially the ones that are unique to Assynt and the Highlands are really understudied. So it's more of a showcase, just to say this is the fish, this is a little bit about them, and I'll go through all the different fish photos that I have. All of these are my own photos, all caught within Assynt. So this is start off as a Tom Pot blenny. Andy featured this one on Facebook as well. This was caught from a large rock pool just outside of Achmelvik, and it's a type of cone-tooth blenny, which is quite rare up here, as it's mostly dominated by the other common blenny species that's up here. But this one is this one is just without comment. This is a solitary male. This one. Males live in the same place for their entire life, which is how they become. They're very loved by divers because they can become so friendly, and they have such a long lifespan, about 20 years, that a diver can sort of become friendly with with one and have it come up and sit on its hand or the diver's head, just because of how it lives in the same place. It's always there, never really ventures 1, 2 or 3 meters out of its hole. So next, thank you. Next up, this is one, through all my research, both the books I have, these are painted gobies. This is a large group of them that I gathered in Lochinver. Really unknown species, more or less unstudied. They're in Scotland and the southwest of Norway is their main habitat. There's some pockets of them in northern England, but they're mostly confined to here. They have a few easy misidentifications with other species. They're one of around 10 species of gobies we have here, and within that, one of the 5 species that are under 10 centimetre gobies. They're reasonably common, I find, around bladderwrack gravel areas, and they're very, again, this is so little, I don't see them in the winter. Why that is unknown. If they go out to breed, or where they go, or if they die off during spawning. It's just such an untouched subject. People don't know. Next up, some of you might recognise this one, the 15-spined stickleback. Only species of its genus, there's no other species in the world that has the same form as a 15-spined stickleback. This one was caught in the marina at Lochinver, and yeah, they're just super unique. They are an ambush predator. They live amongst the bladderwrack, and they'll take any small invertebrate or fish fry that lives or that moves too close. They also feed on plankton as well. They breed in the spring, from May to June, in which you might notice these are very similar looking to seahorses. They follow the same breeding pattern as many seahorse species, which is that the males will take on the eggs and fan them with his fins until they are fry, and once they are fry, the male will then release them, and again, they believe they die after that. There's not evidence. They think that that's what happens. They'll die after they release the fry, but that's just a theory from biologists. So next up, this photo is less about the fish and more about, you might notice those black spots covering the fish. That is from a disease called black spot disease, which is really common up here, more than in other places in the UK it would seem. And it is a disease that's transmitted between small fish, and it goes through birds. So it starts off with a fish eating a bird with black spot disease. From that, the eggs from the disease will mature in the bird's intestine before, when they're released into the water, or if they are over the water when the bird, can't think of the word, you know, defecates, there you go. When the bird defecates, if it lands in the water, the eggs then switch into parasites, where they go into a snail. And they then find a species of snail in which they mature in the snail, and before leaving the snail, when they leave the snail, they then go back into a swimming form and find a fish and latch onto them. and then following that, once the that fish gets eaten by a bird, then the cycle continues again into it, following that. Next up, this is probably one of my favourites locally. This is a pair of both male rock-cut wrasse. They are one of the most important fish that we have locally, due to the fact they're one of the few species of cleaner fish we have in the UK, or the kind of large shoals in Pacific. So they are cleaner fish. It's a off-balance mix of males and females. One male will dominate a large group of females, but they move as a shoal of fish. They never stay in the same place when they're not spawning, because they hunt around cleaning. The males get much larger. These are both males, as I said. The males get much larger than the females as they grow to 7 inches, whereas the females will only grow up to 3 inches. The females also only have that colouring on the nose of the fish. They don't have anything on the fins like these some examples do. They're quite endangered locally due to their properties as cleaner fish, making them valuable to aquaculture. But I've found that this year they seem to have rebounded from what I've seen previously from my very not very standard studies of just seeing how many I've seen and caught in that year. But yeah, these are one of my favourite local fish, and just don't know they're there really, unless you see them. Next up, this is another one. This one was caught on the White Shore. This is a grey gurnard. It's a species of sea robin, there's 4 species of sea robin locally. It's really, I found, quite common within Assynt. It's over any sand or mud bottoms. Oh, I didn't realise when I posted this photo, there's also a sand goby in the bottom of the tank there. So that's a sand goby. That's the one that I was mentioning that's very similar to painted goby before. So that's a sand goby down there. They'll eat any sort of shrimps, crustaceans. One of the most unique things about this is, you can't really see it as well in this photo, but they have 4 tentacles under their gills they can walk with. So these fish don't swim along the bottom, they'll walk along the bottom, and they use that to their advantage for hunting prey. Very cool fish, I think, and I love them. Last but not least is one of my favourite local species as well, is this a leopard spotted goby. It's again, very understudied species. I found them all over Assynt. They're very sought after by the people that do the type fishing that I do, due to their very funky colorations that they have. And this one was caught in a rock pool near Achmelvik. Very little known about the breeding cycles. As I said, there's reports from divers in the Highlands saying that they've seen these living with conger eels in some sort of relationship with them, that they'll clean them, but no studies have been done into it. So hopefully in the future we'll know what the relationship is they have with congers, and yeah. So
Any questions?
When you say catch, what sort of hooks are you using?
Well, that actually reminds me. So afterwards, if anybody wants to have a look, I've got a full thing of how I catch these little fish, and showing down to the size of hooks that I use that are the width of a fingernail. My smallest ever caught fish was half of an inch.
You need your glasses to see the hooks.
Yeah. So I'm using a plastic artificial bait with a really, really small hook to catch a lot of them. I haven't shown some of the really small ones on this photo, but for example, stuff like 15 spine stickleback does not have a big mouth. So, yeah.
You say people catch them to put in what agriculture? Do you mean in commercial agriculture?
Yeah, for salmon farms, yeah. That's the rock-cut grass, because they're such the good cleaner fish, and they eat all of the
Fish lice.
yeah, sea lice here. So that's why they're very valuable to them.
And is there any licensing for that, or just anyone who's got and do it?
I don't think it's not something that people do as a hobby. Really, it was mostly done by creel boats as a sort of a side gig.
Side
But
hustle.
yeah, but I mean, I think if I remember
I
correctly,
think it was unregulated.
at the peak of the price for wrasse, it was £7 a pound for Ballon wrasse, and those would be higher. Those would be like £5 a pound. Or sorry, but like more than that because they're smaller. So.
So is it mostly like bycatch?
No. So they would set wrasse cages and they'd have a large tub on the creel boats where they would.
I think it's gone out of favour a bit recently.
Locally it has, yeah. There's
Yeah.
not people who do it as much locally, but it's still in. It's now in Cornwall they're doing it a lot more. There is efforts for another species called lumpsucker, which they're trying to farm commercially in Wales to some success, but it's just way more expensive, so they don't want to pay for it.
Have you ever caught a weaver fish?
I have caught many weaver fish, yeah. I've caught them on the White Shore, the Clactall and Agmelic beaches.
They're the ones that are really nasty when they
Yeah.
crack you.
Corwin, you were saying that there's hardly any studies in most of these fish, so
Yeah.
are there some studies?
There is some on a few of them, but especially there's some, but they're very limited or done, not with the university, just because they hold no commercial value. It's only really for research. There's no other purpose, especially for the gobies like this. It's just purely research, so they're less fun to fund it. There's nothing that will get back out of it as far as they see it.
Do you fancy researching it?
Definitely.
I think you should.
Yeah.
And maybe in the future, as indicators of environmental health, it might be a thing to look at. Generally, you tend to look at the smaller things in the food pyramid, don't you? So
That's right. And with climate change, it'd be interesting to see how all this is changing. Yeah. It's absolutely fascinating. Thank you. So at the end, please come up and have a look. So our last speaker is Jane. Jane is going to talk about some of her wildlife sightings of Blair Star. Behind Store School.
Right, hi everyone. As you can see, I don't think you need to kind of guess too hard what this is that we have here in this photo. A beautiful barn owl. I've always loved owls, particularly barn owls. Where we used to live down in East Lothian, we lived in a farm cottage, and I was very lucky that there were some barn owls that nested in the big old open stone farm building there, and I used to watch them quite a lot. I got to know the farmer quite well, and I would go in and watch the barn owls kind of just at a distance. There wasn't really anyone in the area monitoring them, so it was just a personal thing. And then when we moved up here in 2022, the people we bought the house from, I don't know if you know where Blairstown is, it's just kind of up from here, up the valley from the Old Stowe Primary School, off a track off the Lighthouse Road, so it's quite secluded, which is ideal habitat for the barn owls because they're not getting disturbed by traffic and people going around. So the people we bought the house from said they had seen a barn owl going in and out the ruined barn next to our croft cottage. And I thought, barn owls this far north. I wasn't too sure about that, but well, maybe. And sure enough, not long after we moved in, I saw a barn owl going in and out that barn. So I went to investigate and found quite a few reasonably fresh owl pellets. Didn't look like it was kind of using it as a main breeding roost site. It was more a few pellets, like it was maybe using it as a temporary roost to go in and shelter when it was out hunting at night and got caught in bad weather or something. And I let Andy know. I got to know Andy through working at the nursery at school, and he was very interested and said, "Oh, I've got this spare owl box," because Andy is also very interested in barn owls and very knowledgeable about barn owls. He monitors and checks on barn owl boxes in Assynt, for which he has a license for. You have to have a license to go anywhere near barn owls or handle them because they are a protected species. And he has one of those licenses. And he has this spare owl box, and he said, oh, you know, after the winter I could come and put that up. But in the meantime, I had found out that they were actually much more active in this ruined croft cottage, which is just down from us, which I call Jessie's because it's a lady called Jessie used to live there. And yeah, Angus Mackenzie, bless him, told me quite a bit about Jessie. And so this is Jessie's croft. And this is where the owls were most definitely using it as a main, not only a roosting site, but probably breeding there already before the box was in. There was a huge, big, thick layer of owl pellets, really old ones and really fresh ones as well. So it was decided that that's where the owl box was going. So in February 2023, Andy installed the owl box in there. And this is one of the adult owls having a little bit of a doze up in the rafters of the ruined croft. As you can see, it wasn't really that bothered by having its photo taken. Yeah, they've kind of got to know me quite well. I pop my head in there and check on them every now and again. They've got to know me moving around, and I think they've got to know Andy going to check on them. So they're okay with us coming and going. So how do I move on to the next photo? Thank you. So in 2023, the year that the box was put in, an adult used the box, but primarily just to kind of roost in it. There was no breeding happening. But the next again year, in 2024, they did breed. They bred successfully, and they had 2 chicks, which both fledged. So that was really, really positive news. And then the next year, 2025, so last year, I started seeing signs of them out hunting a lot in sort of starting kind of mid-April and through into May. So that was a clear indication. The amount of hunting that I was seeing going on was an indication that they probably had at least eggs or young again at that point. So I would go in the evening at dusk, just as it was getting light, quite often, and just sit just near the croft cottage and watch them. And I got a lot of different videos of them and a lot of photos of them. I could have bored you to tears with the amount of photos I have of them, but this is actually a still frame from a video that I took of one. I would just sit a bit like you, Stefan, sitting for hours watching for them coming out. And they became very comfortable with me sitting there with Gus, my dog. They weren't bothered. And they would fly really low over me sometimes, and I was able to photo them and film them. And this one was so close to me that I could actually, it saw me, and it gave me a bit of an alarm call as it went past, and I could hear it screeching, but it really wasn't that fast. It just carried on hunting. And it's, as you can maybe see, the habitat, it's very open there, but where we are at Blairstown, it's kind of quite open, but down in the main croftland area, which is all, it's an absentee tenant that has the croftland, and it's not been used in years, probably about 20 years or so. It's, as croftland goes, it's in a terrible state, but from the wildlife point of view, it has actually got a lot of benefits, because the reed beds are quite flooded, and the reeds are really thick and everything, so there's lots of toads and frogs in there. And when the owls can't catch voles, they will catch toads and frogs. And I've seen them hunting over the reed beds, and I've seen them catching toads. And I've also seen signs of them in the pellets as well. Sometimes you can see bits. It's obviously not fur. It's bits of frogs and toads that they've been eating. And also the sheep that come into the croft land, because the fences are all broken. Since we've moved there, their numbers have really decreased. I'm not quite sure why. I think just that some of the crofters round about don't have so many sheep wandering about the common grazings above us, so there are not so many sheep coming in. So the longer grass and reedy areas are getting a chance to establish, which is perfect for the voles. And it's perfect for the owls, so it's a win-win situation all round, really. And then on to the next photo. Thank you. So yes, this last year was a really, really good vole year. And they had 5 eggs, only 4 of them hatched. Sadly, out of those 4, only 2 made it through to the fledgling stage, which it maybe seems really sad, but it's a really positive story, because they are, way up north here. They kind of are on the edge of their survival range. So any owlets that get to the fledgling stage is a win-win situation. And this is a photo of one of last year's owlets on Andy's hand. I have been blessed to be able to help Andy with going to check that owl box, and I help him with weighing them and just kind of recording the information about them that he sends off to the Raptor Society. And it's just been an absolute pleasure getting to know all about them. And I have become quite obsessed with them, I think, probably. And then if we can move on to the next photo. Yeah, it's not an owl. This is another one of my obsessions, is butterflies. And you maybe think, what's it got to do with owls? But it's actually connected in quite a strong way. When we moved into Blairstown, the big front garden area, I was a bit daunted by what to do with this area. It had clearly been gardened in the past. I could see signs of old lazy beds, and I thought about restoring them, and I thought about creating a more formal garden area. And I just thought, this garden does not lend itself to being a formal garden, really. And the first year, I didn't have time to try and create lazy beds again and start growing vegetables. So I just let it go. And I let it mostly be wild grasses, and the wildflowers come back up. But I had a bit of a problem with the sheep getting in quite often, so they would just munch everything. So that first year, we really worked on the fencing and managed to stop the sheep coming in. And now I have a much better wildflower grass area in the front garden, which this past year just absolutely blossomed. And it's the main reason I do it is for the barn owls, because it's perfect for the voles and perfect habitat for the voles. So it also creates another hunting area for the barn owls. But I also win because it's great for pollinators as well. So I get quite a lot of different butterflies. And then onto the next photo, and the last photo. I also get lots of bees and lovely, lovely hoverflies. I can't remember the name of this hoverfly, Andy.
I used to know.
Is it a bee fly?
I think it is. Is it not? No. Anyway, lovely hoverfly, which last summer I had so many of them. They love the knapweeds. And they just absolutely, so most of the wildflowers that I have were there already. And just with keeping the sheep out, it's amazing what's coming up through the grasses and everything. I have sowed a few different things. I've sowed some ragged robin, and that's kind of establishing itself quite a lot as well. So, yeah, it's a win-win. I get lots of pollinators, and it helps the barn owls too. And really hoping that they use that nest box again this year. They are one adult is definitely still surviving. I saw it in that snowy weather. I was out actually digging the chickens out of the snow one morning, and I must have disturbed it. It was roosting in the ruined barn next to us, which is quite close to where my chicken run is. And I must have disturbed it because it flew out of there, flew over the garden, and then back down to Jessie's croft. So would hopefully go into the nest box and shelter in there. So one adult is still surviving. And I know, Rachel, you see a barn owl at yours sometimes, don't you? So it could be one of the owlets maybe, and yeah, who knows. I quite often see one in the ruined sort of barn buildings across from Mark and Monica's, where the astronomy place is. There's one goes in and out there. So yeah, it's hard to tell which ones are which, but
Torbreck definitely has barn owls,
yeah,
100%.
fantastic. Do you know where they're nesting, or?
No, it must have been quite close to our house. Was it 2-3 years ago? But when I guess it must have been. I don't know the stages of fledging, but I guess when they're those little grey balls of fluff,
Yeah.
they must reach a certain point where they can fly, I guess, a short distance to a tree, because they seem to, for it was about a week, wasn't it? They would, it was four chicks.
I'm sure there's barn owls.
I'm pretty sure. I've seen barn owls flying at Torbreck as well, but they would come out and be in the tree, and then the parent birds, I guess, would be out and bringing stuff to them.
Yeah.
And that happened for about a week, and they were screeching away in the tree, making a hell of a noise. I don't know if that sounds like barn owls.
Yeah, they do screech, definitely.
And they were just shouting for mum and dad,
Yeah.
or mice or whatever.
Yeah.
And they did that, and I've seen on a couple of occasions them flying through the glen in Torbreck.
Yeah.
So quite a few times I've seen them. So they're around there, but I wouldn't know where they would. There's crags opposite Sam's. There's cliffs with nooks and crannies in it. I don't know if that would be their natural. There is, and maybe at Torbreck House there might be a barn they'd be using.
I don't know. I've never found a nest around there.
Yeah.
They do sometimes use crags, but they much prefer an old barn. If
Yeah.
they can find it.
There's the big tin barn.
There's a place at yours, Gwen, that building on the way up to yours. That I don't know whether they can access that building, but that would be perfect.
Highlands.
I've looked there. I haven't seen them.
There's the big steel barn up at Joe and Trevor's.
Yeah,
Big steel building there as well. So I think there are, and I don't know what there is at Torbreck House.
The fact that when you put a nest box up, they seem to go for it.
Right.
It implies they don't have enough nest places. And I think that in the Highlands that is a limiting factor, because nest boxes are used very quickly. So,
Yeah.
I'll nail some to some trees in Torbreck.
any other questions? Turn the lights on again.
Do you think they could spread then? I mean, if there were more nest boxes put out, or is there, or are they at the real limit of their range? Because those days that were snowy, they're not able to hunt the days, are they? So.
Well, Andy was just saying that they are actually found right up to the north coast now, aren't they?
Right.
I think because the climate is changing, so I know we've had this snowy spell of weather, but in general, winters are getting milder. There aren't so many prolonged periods of snow, so I think the pattern is that they are heading further north and surviving. It depends on the voles, doesn't it?
Yeah. As you said, it's a long period of snow they don't like.
Yeah.
Doesn't it
any idea what barn owls used to use before they were barns?
Hollow trees. Down south,
Yeah.
I've had barn owl nests in hollow ash,
Right, okay. Yeah.
growling in ones.
I've never heard of them up here doing
No,
that. but then
we
don't
haven't
have-
got trees that go
yeah,
hollow like
yeah.
that, not really. Birds don't go very often,
No.
so.
Yeah, it does make sense because they seem to like wood.
Mm.
But we had a big barn next door to us at Eager Farm in Lincolnshire, and one day it was February the 14th, and two barn owls were obviously flying together off the end of the barn. And they always say the barn owls mate on February the 14th.
Right,
That's
okay.
Valentine's
There you go.
They were courting.
They do breed really early. I mean, I see them round about February. I see them flying around, and they make this quite distinctive call. I don't know whether it's the male calling to the female or vice versa, but they're really distinctive noises, and it's, yeah, it can be quite noisy in February time up my mine.
Have you had a look at any of the pellets to see, I mean, there will be field voles, but there'll also be quite a number of shrews, and possibly other, might have bank voles if there's any, or, you know, have you looked at any pellets?
I
Not
have
yet?
looked at the pellets. I've not looked at them closely enough to know which type of voles it is that they're eating. Signs of small birds, definitely, as well,
We've got plenty
sometimes.
of frogs and toads.
Yeah,
for sure.
plenty frogs and toads. But I do quite often see feathers in the pellets as well, so I think the meadow pipits are on their diet.
So let's have a small sample of 10, and we'll do an analysis of the small mammals anyway. You could get up to 4 species of small mammals out of barn owl pellets.
How many
Yeah.
species of owl are there recorded?
Here,
And us?
four.
Four.
Short-eared, long-eared, barn owl, tawny owl. That's it.
Hmm.
Tawny owls are by far the commonest,
Uh-huh.
but they're very linked to woodlands. But
Yeah. Not enough trees
I've
out
seen a
this way.
long-eared owl at Torbrack as well.
Right, okay.
A long time ago.
Long-eared kind of migrate, so they move around, so they pop up each year in different
I
places.
never saw it again. I saw it once.
Yeah,
Never
yeah,
saw it again.
yeah.
I saw a short-eared owl at Ardvar. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw a short-eared a couple of times near Skiak over the summer, so I'm thinking maybe they were breeding around.
Yeah.
If it was a good vole year, that might bring them in, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you.